another series review. I have been in the process of rereading the series, so if you've seen my wrap-ups, you know what it is. Also, if you've seen the title, I guess you know what this is. But yeah. So I recently reread the Bridgertons series, which I had reread some of these books in the past, but not all of them. And I am now going to talk about it. So this is a historical romance series by Julia Quinn, and I think a lot of people think of this as like the Bridgertons. It's like a big, like, stalwart series, and actually this was really well timed because recently there was an announcement that this has been optioned and picked up by Netflix, and I have not looked into it too much. I did see that Shonda Rhimes is attached to it in some way, I assume as a producer. I am excited about a romance novel becoming, or romance series becoming, a television series, and especially potentially in like a more mainstream way. Like there is Passionflix, which is also working on doing stuff like this. However, I am not the biggest Shonda Rhimes fan. I have tried watching several of her shows and they just don't work for me in so many ways. So I am a little like cautious, and that's really why I haven't looked too much into this. But it is going to be a series, and I know tons of people are very excited about it, and I will certainly check it out once it's released. So there are 8 novels in this series, and then there are basically like 9 short stories or novellas that were released in a bind up. So real quick, I'll go through all of the books. I did not write down my ratings for these, so sorry. Check out my Goodreads, link below. So the first book is The Duke and I, which I don't own a physical copy of. I have an ebook version of it, and I'm not a huge fan of it, so I didn't see the point in buying a physical copy. And then you have, oh, throwing books around, The Viscount Who Loved Me, An Offer from a Gentleman, Romancing Mr. Bridgerton, To Sir Philip with Love, When He Was Wicked, It's in His Kiss, and On the Way to the Wedding. And then those little novellas, short stories I had told you about are bound up in this, which is The Bridgertons Happily Ever After, and the 8 of those short stories are second epilogues to those books, and one is about Violet Bridgerton, who is the mother of 8 of the characters in these books, the Bridgertons. So this series follows 8 siblings, 4 boys, 4 girls, who are named from letters A to G. So you have, can I do it? Hold on. Anthony, Benedict, Colin, Daphne, Eloise, Francesca, Gregory, and Hyacinth. I always want to call Gregory Gareth, which is the name of the hero in It's in His Kiss. And it follows their journey towards finding love, and of course you have the awesome Violet Bridgerton, their mother, throughout all of them. Unfortunately, their father passed away probably like, I don't know, 10-15 years prior to the start of the series. So the second book, The Viscount Who Loved Me, used to be hands down my favorite in this series. It's a like bickering couple romance, which is definitely one of my favorite tropes. And while I still really like it, and I saw a few issues with it this time around, and now in a weird turn of events I never saw coming, To Sir Philip with Love is actually probably my favorite in the series, aside from Violet's novella, because Violet is amazing and she is the best. So the characters. The Bridgertons are a loving but eccentric family. These are all a bunch of crazy characters, probably with the exception of Francesca from When He Was Wicked. She's kind of the more calm and normal Bridgerton. This was actually my first ever Julia Quinn novel, When He Was Wicked, and it is different in tone than the other Bridgerton novels, but it's still a beautiful story. So like I said, their father passed away. Their mother was actually pregnant with the eighth Bridgerton, Hyacinth. At the time she was like 8 months pregnant. So, and there is a pretty big age gap. I believe Anthony's like 19 when his father dies, so there's like almost 20 years between him and Hyacinth. So that leads to interesting relationships and dynamics between all these characters, where like some of them are more like siblings, some have more like paternal or maternal relationships, and all of those different interactions always make for fun on the page. Like I've said several times, the mom, Violet, is just perfection. I love and adore her. She is like a scene stealer and the most amazing character, and I remembered really loving her story. It's called Violet in Bloom, and while it's a novella, it actually like takes you through her whole life basically. And I remember it making me cry the first time I read it, and it made me cry the second time I read it. And it's like, you know everything about her. Well, you don't know everything about her, but you know about her, but it's still crazy to see her and how strong and amazing she is. The love interests have very good personalities. They kind of mix well with the Bridgertons. It becomes this huge, amazing found family. Some of the standouts for me are probably Kate from The Viscount Who Loved Me, and Sophie from An Offer from a Gentleman. She is sassy pants and I love her. So the romances, generally I like them. Book 4, Romancing Mr. Bridgerton, is incredibly popular in like the Julia Quinn / historical romance community. Oh, but it does not work for me. I have talked about this before, so I won't go into too much detail. It is unrequited love. Ugh, I just don't buy it at all. Ugh. But I already said some of my favorites. An Offer from a Gentleman is actually kind of a Cinderella story, which is a trope I'm not a fan of as a general rule. I've never been a big fan of it. Even like as a kid, I never really liked the movie Cinderella that much, at least for the romance. I'm a big Jack and Gus fan. I have a Susie Zoom up there somewhere, so I like them, but not so much the Cinderella story. But I really liked this romance. It's super angsty and emotional between Benedict and Sophie, but it's beautiful. Now, there are some problematic moments in these stories, and I'm not sure I ever really noticed them previously, but now that people talk more and more about these things, I think it's easier for me to pick them out. Now, I don't think any of them, barring a situation in The Duke and I, are that bad necessarily. It's kind of like forceful kissing that's then conceded to. That's a pretty standard thing that occurs in romances, and these are from the early 2000s, and I think that that was really common back then. I think it's something you see authors trying to stay away from a little more and more now. So finally is would I recommend this series? And before I did my reread, I would have hands down said yes. I think that the Bridgertons was in my like original historical romance recommendations video. Like I think I did that in like 2013 or 14 or something like that. I don't know. But after my reread, I have to like do a lot more qualifiers. If you've read other Julia Quinn books and you like her books, I would say go ahead and read these. I don't know how you would have read Julia Quinn before and not read the Bridgertons, but maybe you did. I don't know. She has a ton of books out there. She actually has a whole nother series that's more recent that takes place before these, that are actually about like, or is connected to the Bridgerton family, like their dad's family basically. And I've read a couple of those, but like one of them is because of Miss Bridgerton. So maybe you've read those or something. And if you can overlook those slight problematic things, then I think I would suggest giving them a try. And if you read The Duke and I, so if you are a stickler for reading the series in order, then go ahead and read The Duke and I. But if you read it and you have an issue with it, particularly the thing that happens in it with Daphne, if you want to know what it is, let me know and I'll let you know. I really, really encourage you to continue on to The Viscount Who Loved Me, just to give it another shot. And if you don't like this, then stop reading. If you are fine with skipping over books, then I suggest just starting with The Viscount Who Loved Me and skipping The Duke and I. I remember what happened in that first book bothering me when I first read it, and it still bothers me now. Yeah, those are my thoughts on the Bridgertons. So if you have any comments, questions, anything like that, let me know down below, and I will see you later.